Hi, I'm Eli, and I'm here with my first booktube video. What? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the phenomena in which gay fiction cannot seem to have a happy ending. Name 5 books right now that are gay that didn't make you cry or want to jump out a window. In gay world, I would say plus lesbian world, plus bi world, plus queer world, pan world, trans world, etc. There are 2 main holidays. If you're in the alphabet and you're already familiar, just bear with me while we educate the outliers of the alphabet. The numbers, perhaps, are straight people numbers. The 2 holidays are Halloween and Pride. The lead up to these holidays can be intense, exciting, exhilarating, and then once they're over, you may feel alone and sad. But don't worry, children. We're gonna get through this period together. This book haul started out by me realizing that I actually haven't read a lot of the prime classic gay fiction novels out there, and I figured I should. I read them after Googling classic gay fiction novels. I can recommend them to you, but with a hot sauce type of barometric chart that will help you understand the level and scope, maybe flavors of depression that these books come with. So you can make a educated, consensual decision on whether or not your psyche is ready for the book. Let's get into it. So the first book I read in this journey was Lie With Me by Philippe Besson. Part of the reason I read this book, to be honest, is because it's translated by Molly Ringwald, and I don't really speak French, so I couldn't comment on her translation, but she's a queen, so I'm sure it's great. Most definitely bring a roll of toilet paper or a box of tissues with you, because this book slaps the sad right in ya. I would recommend this book if you're a big fan of Call Me By Your Name. A rural boy that's kind of gritty and holds to his morals and ethics is quietly, mysteriously in love with our narrator who's very in his head, intellectual. It's a coming-of-age story for a French rendezvous, and it's starting out really sexy, and by the end, wow, I didn't know sex could become sad so fast. This book won't make you need SSRIs, but it will jerk your tears if you're looking for such an adventure. This book also takes on some issues of class, which I always appreciate when reading. You get to re-experience that first, those first memories of deep intimacy with another person that you might have. I recommend this one if you're ready to go down memory lane to your coming of age story. If you're at the age of coming of age, this might be a rude awakening for you. Take it with a grain of salt. Overall, I would rank it 6.5, 7 out of 10. The second book I read is Dancer from the Dance by Andrew Holleran. And there's a trigger warning to this book, and really most of the books that are classic gay fiction novels where the main characters are just automatically white. They fetishize men of color. In this book, Latino men are very fetishized. So if it would not be good for your mental health to read such a thing, don't read this book. If you can stomach it, there is a lot of existential truth-telling as to the gay male community in this book. This book follows a protagonist as he falls in love with a man, they break up, and he starts going out. He starts becoming a part of the gay scene. The interesting thing about this book is that it has various sections where it is written from other characters' points of view. It flips between you watching the main character almost like you're lusting with other boys over him at a club to being inside of his mind and seeing, in a diaristic sense, his feelings and experiences of the world. This book, at its core, talks a lot about the tension in the gay community between wanting to have genuine, intimate connections and confusing searching for them in more vapid, primarily sexual relationships. If you're tired of Grindr and you want to read a book and judge the people that are looking for love on Grindr and pretend that you yourself will not be one of those men back looking for love on Grindr in 2 months, I recommend this book to you. It didn't really hit that high on my sad scale. This book would be let's say a 3 on the sad scale. When I tell you the next book hits heavy on the sad scale, I do not lie. The next book is James Baldwin, Giovanni's Room. I definitely recommend that you do not forget to take your antidepressants on the day that you start, continue, and finish this book, because you will need all of the backup you can get. It follows a main character who is a man in his late 20s, early 30s, and he is in France, and he meets this girl that he has genuine, caring feelings for. She is an independent kind of girl, so she takes a little break to visit Italy without him, and while she's away, our character meets Giovanni. Giovanni is hot. Giovanni is wanted by a lot of the men that see him. Suffocation and being suffocated by your partner and your love for your partner, which are 2 separate forms of suffocation, affects this main narrator. You walk through falling in love with Giovanni with him. The end of the novel is I'm not crying talking about this book. It's sad, okay? So if you are someone parsing through how hard it is to be in love, read this book. Also, on the scale of 1 to 10, 8.59 on the sad scale. So, next we have Yukio Mishima's Confession of a Mask. This is probably my favorite book out of all of the books I've read so far. It has passages, especially if you're someone whose relationship to gender has affected your sexuality and your sexuality has affected your relationship to gender. You'll read passages and you'll be like, oh my god, did he access my diary? It mainly follows the narrator through relationships with 2 men, and overall, I would say this book is pretty romantic. He is, I don't want to say kinky, but open-minded, curious, queer person in a culture that is not only homophobic, but just very strict in its cultural tradition. It follows him from growing up in a era of Japan that is pre-World War II. And it grapples a lot with, I wouldn't say the character's gayness as much as the character's queerness. It is a ballad to trusting your own queer inner voice. Beautiful ode to just growing into one's sexuality and how your sexuality affects every part of who you are as a person. There are some parts of this book that sting really deep. I'm gonna give this book a 6 on the sad scale, and you might be saying, you didn't make it seem like it's that sad, so why is it a 6? The answer to that is, this book made me feel seen, and being seen makes me sad. Sometimes, even when we get the things we want, it's hard to grapple with the feelings that come up when we get the thing we want. Lastly, this week I read The Spell by Alan Hollinghurst. He's a British author, probably in your Goodreads recommendation if you rated Call Me By Your Name 5 stars. This book follows 4 men. There's an older gay man, Robin, who has a complicated relationship with his past partner who is passed away. We have his current partner, who is a wild, chaotic, sex-hungry young man named Justin. We have Robin's child, Danny, who is a young, clubbing, sexy, popular boy that is just living the life. And then we have our main character, Alex, who is ex-boyfriends with Justin and eventually falls in love with Robin's son. Danny, who is Robin's son, gives Alex ecstasy when they go out together, and Alex's life changes. You may be familiar with the sense of time in this book if you yourself have had a uppers experience that changed your life. He writes really long, beautiful, poetic passages. There are metaphors in every freaking paragraph. So if wordy writing is not your thing, I don't recommend this book. But if you love a metaphor, if you love a simile, this book is gonna hit your sweet spot. This book starts out really slow for the first 50 pages until this ecstasy trip, and then things start rolling. It was sad in a way. I think I just have a hard time feeling bad for white, rich, cis, gay men. And all 4 characters are white, rich, cis, gay men. They are very complicated characters. So overall, I would rank this a 4 on the sad scale. Definitely a read if you love chaotic gay drama. This book is going to hold you over until your next gossip session because the characters in this book are the definition of gay chaos. This book also takes on themes of wanting intimacy and wanting sex, and how those two things sometimes click and sometimes don't, and sometimes fuse and sometimes cancel each other out. Just all about that binary in gay world. Those are my first 5 gay novel picks. If you want to see me do a part 2 to this, where I read some other classics, Call Me By Your Name, Black Leopard, Red Wool, and others, comment and subscribe, like, and until I see you next.